Turin Shroud IS. The cloth Jesus was buried in, scientist claims and says he has an enormous quantity of evidence to prove it. For centuries, Catholics have flocked to the Italian city of Turin to be in the presence of its famous shroud. The venerated piece of linen, measuring 14 feet 5 inches by 3 feet 7 inches, bears a faint image of the front and back of a man interpreted by many as Jesus Christ. The Shroud of Turin features the image of a man with sunken eyes, which experts have analyzed under different filters to study it. Professor De Caro told The Telegraph, "If I had to be a judge in a trial, weighing up all the evidence that says the shroud is authentic and the little evidence that says it is not, in all good conscience I could not declare that the Shroud of Turin is medieval. It would not be right, given the enormous quantity of evidence in favor of it." Professor De Caro's recent X-ray study that found the Shroud of Turin does indeed date back 2,000 years to around the time Christ lived and died. We also know from the Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURP, in the 1970s and 1980s that the holy fabric was indeed stained with blood. The STURP found that the stains have traces of hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that delivers oxygen. The stains also gave a positive test for serum albumin, the most abundant protein in human blood plasma. In 1981, in its final report, the STURP team wrote, "We can conclude for now that the shroud image is that of a real human form of a scourged, crucified man. It is not the product of an artist, so until his new study, the only missing piece of the puzzle was dating," Professor De Caro told. He said that everything on the shroud is highly correlated to what the Gospels tell about Jesus Christ and his death. The cloth appears to show faint, brownish images on the front and back, depicting a gaunt man with sunken eyes who was about 5 feet 7 inches to 6 foot tall. Dear viewer, subscribe my channel and like share videos. Markings on the body also correspond with crucifixion wounds of Jesus mentioned in the Bible, including thorn marks on the head, lacerations on the back and bruises on the shoulders. Historians have suggested that the cross he carried on his shoulders weighed around 300 pounds, which would have left bruises. The Bible states Jesus was whipped by the Romans, aligning with the lacerations on the back, who also placed a crown of thorns on his head before the crucifixion. Believers say it was used to wrap the body of Christ after his crucifixion, leaving his bloody imprint, like a photographic snapshot. Despite repeated hoax claims, a scientist is now convinced that the object really did wrap Jesus, and says there's an enormous quantity of evidence to prove it. Professor Liberato De Caro, a committed Catholic and a deacon in his local church, rubbished claims that it was produced in medieval times with his recent study. The Shroud of Turin, pictured, is believed by many to be the cloth in which the body of Jesus was wrapped after his death. But not all experts are convinced it is genuine. The Bible states that Joseph of Arimathea wrapped the body of Jesus in a linen shroud and placed it in a tomb. The scientists obtained small samples of the Shroud of Turin, left, and exposed it to wide-angle X-ray radiation to create an image of the linen sample, right, which was used for dating. The shroud first appeared in 1354 in France. After initially denouncing it as a fake, the Catholic Church has now embraced the shroud as genuine. Pictured, Pope Francis visits the Shroud of Turin in 2015. They concluded that the structural degradations were fully compatible with those of the other linen sample, dated, according to historical records, to AD 55 to 74. The team also compared the shroud with samples from linens manufactured between 1260 and 1390 AD, finding none were a match.